Greetings, everyone. How you doing? It is Monday, and I'm going to livicate this to my son, Zawa, who you can see right behind me there with Fireboy, who's going to be in the background. There's my little sweet spot of sunshine. These are all pictures that I had printed at a local print shop for $1 something a piece in color. Just like this one here of me that Christina took at a local beach. Looks like it's kind of hard to see with the way the light is. But I've got a bunch over here as well of my son Zawa. And this was just September 2019, out in front of my house on the mini bike that we had holding Pablo. Anyway, they're fond memories. Let's get it. I want to talk about immunity and medicine. There's a great misunderstanding when it comes to medicine today. And you can't blame the people, and that's because of the hijack. So when you hear me speaking about the hijack quite often, what I'm really saying is that we, the people, used to know how to heal ourselves. From very minor issues to major issues, we had people within our tribe, our pack, our gang, our community, our block, or whatever you want to call it, in past and present and future language, which adapts through the domestication cycles of all of us. Don't worry if it sounds like it's too much. Go back and watch some of my other videos. I will break it down as we go along as well. Okay? So our medicine is nothing like what medicine has ever been. If you go back even 100 years ago, most people knew that when the baby came in, they would look at the earlobe, they would look at the swirl on the back of the head, they would look at the skin, but now the medicalized birth has changed that. The medical industry terms itself healthcare and gives us the illusion of immunity, being able to fend off, fare well, be okay, make it through what they believe is some sort of a battlefield that we've always got to fight and conquer. And that's a suspicious something on my face, bump, you name it, right? It's suspicious. Why are we living, as I started teaching 35, 36, 37 years ago, doesn't matter anymore, does it? A long time ago, because it was taught to me by the grandmothers. I came in a very different environment than most people did. So when I say, hey, you can't just do a quick Google search on something and rely on that, that's not research. Research is really covering the bases by looking at all of the different angles and figuring out how much of what you're researching has been caught up on roadblocks and traps, using Bob Marley language. Excuse me. So before we really dig in, because I'm a wolf spirit is my primary animal, and I do on occasion bare my teeth. I am a great mother, a loving mother, a kind mother. I want to wrap the world's people in my arms, and I want our people to be protected, and I want them to be well against predatory behavior. So it took me a very long time in my life at now 59, through wading through research on a daily basis, not just medical industry research, not just old books, as a couple of young people have said. I didn't just read old books, but I also sat at the feet of other elders in person. I wasn't texting them. I wasn't just calling them on the phone. I sat near them and made it known that I was celebrating them, and I was going to button my lip and listen to what they had to say, and I learned a great deal. So now when people ask me questions on Facebook and Quora, and they call me, 4 women emailed me just last night on Sunday and said, I need help. One of them said, my godson is 2 years old and he stopped talking after getting the vaccines. He doesn't even make eye contact. What are we going to do? Are you just going to go buy a bottle of Zeolite? Really? Are you just going to do one thing? Because now it's what I'm going to call a multi-prong approach. You can't just go to someone who's going to put you on an electric diet. You can't just, and I love Dr. Sebi, full respect. No schmears or cut downs here. You can't just go to someone who's just going to detox you. You can't go to someone who goes, the baby's got some hidden psychosomatic issues. We're just going to do mind body. Like I did with Brian Marshall, who's one of my testimonials, who was my elder in his 60s with a 30-something year psoriasis affecting his body that was red and peeling. It was laying on of hands. It was psychosomatics, mind body medicine. It was working through the angst, the situation that needed to be, it was called for at that time. That's what a pastor does. A pastor ministers. Okay. A medicine woman administers love and guidance so you can heal yourself. And it's going to be the multi-prong approach. You have individual biochemistry. So you have different sets of issues affecting you that you inherited from your parents. They're going to show up on the tissue mineral analysis that you get done. That's why you'll hear me over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. Start by filling out the wellness form on my website. Because if you just say, I've got cancer, what do I need to do right now? I get it. I've been told I had ovarian cancer. Not just told, but if you don't get this surgery within 2 weeks, you're asking for it. At this point, we're going to have to strip your lymph nodes going all the way up. Let me give you one big, fat, juicy, amazing nugget, which I gave a young man that used to call himself Nature Boy at least 5 years ago on the phone. You do not get immunity from any sharp thing being poked inside of you. You don't get immunity that way. No, you don't. You do not build a person up that way. You do not protect them. Instead, you medically rape them. You change them, you rearrange them, but you do not protect them. You do not make them more safe as they discharge the synthetic material, fetal tissues, toxic metals. I've even asked Dr. Watts, who I respect as one of the greatest whom I have learned from, one of the greatest who I speak with, Dr. David Watts. Speak with regularly, and the lab. I said, are they a problem? He said, well, toxic elements are, more or less. I've got the email he sent me. So where's the nugget? The big, fat, juicy nugget that I just mentioned I was going to give you? Write it down. Write it down so you don't forget it. Immunity is found in our, not your, mine, our soil. Immunity is found. Let's get Fire on here. He probably wants to be. You want to be on there, Fire? Immunity is found in our soil. As a man thinketh, nope, as a man eateth, as a woman, as a human, as any living, breathing, sentient life force being is eating. And by eating, I do mean eating whole foods. And they're excreting from the backside, right? Don't mind me if you don't know, my only child that I started this video with died a little over a year ago after a 4-year exhausting, murderous trap, which left me feeling grief feelings, sadness, anger, resentment, because I know the traps. And I know a 20-year-old who goes for a surgery and a doctor knows when he dispenses opiates that they're going to get trapped on these things and offers nothing when I ask. When I'm looking at the hospital records and in April of 2016, just a couple months after, he's having diarrhea and withdrawal symptoms that are so severe from these things because they're meant to trap you, trap your children especially, hijack the limbic system and the amygdala of the brain by design. The nugget is your immunity comes from our soil. So this bag that I've got over here by the door, see if I can point to it. There we go. There's a little bag on the floor right over there. Those are organic banana peels. Those organic banana peels are going to go outside to the composter. I opened them up out of their skins when I could get them as ripe as possible in Northeast Minnesota, meaning there was just a teeny tiny tad of green, which there shouldn't be any, on the top of their stems because they're pulled off green and brought to the stores, which is, that's terrible. Our immunity comes from the soil. So what does that mean and how do we factor that? Washed my hair today. How do we factor that when our people, many of which have gone 40 or 50 years eating chicken nuggets, fried chicken at Champs, instant mashed potatoes, yams out of a can. They've never had ginger. They've never had a persimmon. They don't eat artichokes. They don't eat asparagus. They don't eat Brussels sprouts. They don't eat any of these things. Hi, Fire. You gonna come by Mama? Okay. Instead, all they've ever known is what they've been given. Cereal out of a box made largely with wheat, food colorants, excitotoxins, huge amounts of processed cane sugar. And what didn't we mention here? An endocrine disrupting, so hormone disrupting, plastic jug that's been sitting under the fluorescent lights at the grocery store, the food hostage zone, and they're going to pour the cow udder mucus from a sad, sickened, grieving animal who wishes it could be free. She could be free. Wishes she could be out on the grass with her own young, feeding her own young. Doctors who are trained in traditional allopathic Western evidence-based medicine, who drive the fancy cars and wear the white lab jacket and have the stethoscope, there's a lot of really great ones out there. But the majority who went through an AMA medical school got 1 day or less of training about injections. That doesn't sound like a lot. And once the injection's in there, can you take it back out? Not really. So wait a minute. So you mean to tell me that if we were reseeding by eating persimmons and artichokes and grapes and apples and peaches and pears and cantaloupe, but wait a minute, that's right, they mind fucked you, that you don't know that that's really going to get you your protein and your calcium and all the nutrition that you needed, right? And you've got people out there that legit believe you need to have meat for those reasons. Well, you can't get some of these other things by eating a vegetarian diet, or you're going to become too copper toxic by eating a vegetarian diet. That's not true. They've never lived a vegetarian diet. You could tell by looking at them. You could tell by listening to the throat clearing, which I have been doing in my own grief and demise. I wasn't before. You can tell by their skin. You can tell by the jowls from the side. You can tell by the big taut body mass that kind of looks like a bowl, right? You can tell by the facial structure. You are in a living clay skin bag. In that living clay, that beautiful clay, you are shaping it day by day with your thoughts, your minerals, these trace elements that we test with hair tissue testing. You are changing day by day. So if your face is swollen, your eyes are swollen, if your throat clearing all the time, if you're getting colds and flu, you are in fact not catching a virus. In fact, you are, and I learned this over 20 years ago, detoxing. It's going to have to happen sometime. What's one of the first things that we go to? Excuse me, itchy nose. What's one of the first things that we go to when I work with someone, if you've worked with me before? I want to look at your copper and zinc levels as they show up, knowing that that's one reference about what's happening within the tissue that is your hair. Because the blood is not going to show. The blood wants to keep its balance at all times. The hair is going to show a longer window of information. So if I see, like I did yesterday on Facebook, a woman who's a nurse who charges a lot of money to help other people with her nursing skills, not just here in America, but somewhere else. She goes out of the country. And she's helping other people with their nursing skills. And she has a couple of biopsies off of her face because they're suspicious. And they send them into the lab. You mean to tell me that she never did the assessment that she's in a big body gal, that her skin does not look shining and healthy. Her eyes are not bright. They look very tired. So before they go cutting anything off of my face, I'm going to do an individual assessment. Hey, wait, what's really going on cumulatively here? What's really going on with my individual biochemistry? Do I just look to the hair tissue test? That's a big part. That's a big part of it. Oh, well, you're just going to judge me and look at me and I'm not going to be able to, fit into being perfect for you? That's not it. That's not even close. What I'm doing is I'm making an honest assessment, which is different than we've got 3 different drugs to choose from. And based on what you've been sharing with me, I definitely think the metformin is going to be a better fit for you. You've got ovarian cysts. And it's been proven through different societies that really have worked with this extensively, that really jacking your insulin in your pancreas is going to really benefit you when it comes to those cysts on your ovaries. Poppycock. Now you found out metformin's dangerous, right? Now you found out metformin is not even safe to use. Immunity is found in your everyday habits. Immunity is found in your thoughts. Mentally, emotionally, spiritually, psychically, when I go out to nature every day and walk, every day, it could be 10 below zero. I might only be out there for 5 to 10 minutes, but I'm out there getting sunlight on my skin. Taking vitamin D tablets and capsules is dangerous, people. You turn to the connectors. If you go to my Facebook page, Hair Tissue Mineral Analysis, you're going to see the drink that I made for myself today with juiced fresh ginger and all the ingredients that I list on there. And one of them is lion's mane, which is a particular type of mushroom that is phenomenal for your immune system and helping you to stay calm. These are important things. Because when you have almost 40 years of people saying, I've got this going on and this, I've got 3 things that I really want to work on. You say, okay, tell me where you think they're coming from. And a lot of the time, most of the time, people will say, well, I mean, I know I'm not really eating all that well. I'm saying, well, then it's my job to make it feel like it's something you really can do, which means we might kind of set up a really fun grocery shopping list. Hopefully you're going to get it at the farmer's market, or if it's the middle of winter and you can't go to a farmer's market or a farm stand, then you'll go to the grocery store. And that's what we're going to do right now, because this is what we have created. We've created our immune system. We've created these problems by following allegiance and following suit with other people. Even if they were sheep going right off of the cliff, we're going to follow right along with them. Like I said, once it's injected, I don't know if you can ever get it back out. So you need to understand something. People will tell you this, and then I will say to them, let's put this stuff on the counter and in the refrigerator, and let's kind of get an idea so you start to get into the flow with how you're going to eat. Instead of getting up and making breakfast, watch my YouTube video on breakfast, lunch, and dinner. You've been hoodwinked. You've been sideslammed, sideswiped. You don't need to get up and eat. Get up and do your meditation. Get up and do your prana, your pranic breathing. Get up and do some yoga, even if it's only 5 minutes. Get up and do what I'm doing right now. Get up and skin brush to the heart, okay? Skin brush down my neck. My neck was a hot mess. Skin brush up the arms, okay? Washed my hair, pulled it back so I can just leave it down today while I'm here writing. Let it dry inside where it's nice and warm. Sip on my ginger drink. Make lemonade from the lemons that you have right now. If I only have a little of something and I know it's going to decay, I use it up if it's fresh plant-based food in my refrigerator. Last night, I was snacking on dried persimmons. Finished the bag while I was speaking with my son's former partner, Christina, on the phone. She calls quite often. So, love her dearly. Medicine means taking an inventory about what you're eating, about what your habits are. If you're staying up on video games until 3 o'clock in the morning because all of our minds are so wound up, then you're going to be sleeping later in the day and you're going to start to really get off balance. One thing I found is that as Cynthia Koppel, I want to attribute her, taught me a great deal about Ayurveda and Panchakarma, the detoxification system from India, the science of life, also reading Dr. Vasant Lad over many years, is getting to sleep by 10 or 11 ideally. And if you wake up, try to let yourself go back to sleep. If you're having problems, let's do that hair tissue test and find out what's going on with your CalMag levels. Let's find out what's going on with your sodium to potassium. Let's find out what's going on with the calcium to potassium for your thyroid. Let's look at these ratios. Let's look at your copper levels. Because many a woman who's diagnosed with bipolar, schizophrenia, mood disordered, ADHD is actually a copper issue. And unfortunately, a lot of mainstream people, the same ones that want to push the injections, you do not get immunity from something poked inside of you. You don't. And you do get immunity from mama's breast. But the number one is going to be my give in this live stream, is you're going to get immunity from the soil. So I have a family member, a cousin. What's up? Good to see you. Hi there. I have a cousin who brought over squash and wonderful food from her garden, right? And her garden is here in Minnesota. She's someone that I didn't even know I had a cousin. And people get very, very offended when you say something and you mean it in the spirit of love. The food had no taste. It had no vibration. There was no electricity to the food. So when I went to bake the squash, it was almost like I was eating a piece of cardboard or what I call cellulose. There was nothing to it. There was no vibration. So it was like, why would I even eat this and take the time for my system to process it and excrete it out? So I said, you know what? She goes, should I bring you some more of that stuff? And I was like, oh my gosh, thank you so much. It came at a critical time, about a year before my son died, 2 years before he died. And she would bring them over and I was like, oh, we're so low on money and we're so stressed out. I'm so thankful to have this. And I'd be thankful no matter what. But the food, when farmers don't know, like people don't know when it comes to the canine companions, they don't know that you are comprised of trace elements and that these trace elements are everything. So there are so many copper toxic mothers that have dumped this into their children, and I'm one of them. I lived through so many wretched problems that otherwise could have been prevented if the medical industry was not, in fact, unknowing and downright predatory. So before I go, oh, thank you so much. It means a lot to me. You would think, we've got music stars, rap stars, hip hop stars, and everything else that are, speaking about how they're researching and they're really getting on with all this stuff. And yet the ones that have actually really been researching for all these years are kind of like the ones with 2 to 5 likes on their videos. So I'm going to read you something here. I know you have this. And it is from page 291 in the book. It is a big book. The pandemic of 1918, which is the year that my grandmother and grandfather were born, result of a virus or the First World War? Within a few months, the Spanish flu achieved what all the epidemics in history have not managed, wrote Spiegel Online. In 1918, the pandemic killed between 20 and 50 million people, more than any other disease before. In the USA alone, there were 550,000 deaths. Infected patients suffered from high fever, and their lungs became inflamed. Within a few days, victims drowned in their own fluids. It sounds dramatic, and it was dramatic, but it's much too hasty to assume that a virus triggered mass mortality. There are certainly no facts to support such a theory. These mass deaths occurred at the end of the First World War, July 1914 to November 1918, at a time when countless people were undernourished and under incredible stress after 4 years of war. Additionally, the medications and vaccines applied in masses at that time, lots and lots of people, at that time contained highly toxic substances like heavy metals, arsenic, formaldehyde. Whoops, I got the wrong picture. Yeah. And chloroform, all of which could very likely trigger severe flu symptoms. Numerous chemicals intended for military use also moved unregulated into the public sector for agriculture and medicine. In 1997, a paper by Jeffrey Taubenberger's research team appeared in Science claiming to have isolated an influenza virus, the H1N1, you've all heard of that, from a victim of the 1918 pandemic. But before one can be certain that a pandemic virus had in fact been detected, some important questions must be asked, writes Canadian biologist David Crowe, who analyzed the paper. The researchers had taken genetic material from the preserved lung tissue of a victim, a soldier who died in 1918. Lung diseases were extremely typical of the Spanish flu, but it's a big leap to conclude that the many other million victims also died from the same cause. And particularly, the same virus, as Crowe points out, we simply don't know if the majority of victims died for exactly the same reason. We also do not know if a virus can be held responsible for all the mortalities, because viruses, as they're now be described, were unknown at this time. And even if one does accept that an influenza virus was present in the soldier's lungs, this hardly means that the virus was the killer. I was going to put it away, but let me show this to you one more time, okay? Not that this is the Bible, but I know that a great many of you will respect Torsten Engelbrecht, and you can look up his YouTube videos as I have done and watch them. A German doctor over a YouTuber who's been doing medicine for almost 40 years. Not healthcare, not Western medicine, original medicine. Okay. Yeah, it's a great book. I am too, because I finished a couple other books that I wanted to really finish and then kind of get on this one. So I kind of go in and I take little dips into this one. And I've got my own writing that I need to do. So what I'm getting right now, and what I have gotten from 40 years of hundreds and hundreds of clients, humans and many of them dogs, is it starts in the mind. So if the people are placed under enormous stress, oh my God, the unemployment's going to cut off in December, this month. Are they going to vote it back in? Where am I going to live? I don't have anywhere to live. How can I live amongst people? For some of people, I'm imitating. How can I live amongst people who are guilt and shaming other people when they know nothing about viruses? And as I showed you in a YouTube, or told you and shared with you in a YouTube video just in the last several days, the CDC was voted out in 1949. But they came up in 1951 and said, oh, we've got to get a handle on these viruses. These viruses are just, and therein developed themselves into a surveillance industry. Okay. Watching over where's the disease. Okay. So once you learn that Ebola, measles, polio, tuberculosis, cervical cancer, all the things that are talked about in this book and more, I've been telling people, this book has been out for over 20 years. This is the second edition that came July 31st of 2020. I've been telling people, as I've gleaned information from the elders, the books, the hundreds of books, the digging and the study, and my grandmother's, and also living it, do we want to have gardens and fix our soil? Because as I said, the big give of this video, the big give, is that your immunity is found in the soil. If mama's not healthy when she's birthing you, borning you, growing you in her womb, you're not going to be healthy. If you inherit her patterns and you start off with glaring problems because you didn't find it worthy, you weren't sure that maybe it wasn't just quack watch, and you didn't invest in yourself. The blood maintains a certain pH and a certain homeostasis, so it kicks elements out of the blood, and the blood is not a reliable indicator to be able to ascertain copper toxicity, heavy metal poisoning in large part. It's certainly far inferior for testing zinc, and I think if you've really followed anything to do with this virus shenanigan, you would see that zinc is vitally important. Otherwise, you wouldn't lose your sense of smell and taste. You wouldn't hear the talk about displacement of zinc off of the receptor sites. Okay. You would really begin to understand that many of the people that were getting ventilators shoved down their throat are actually people that had mind, body, fear, and they were already in one or multiple levels of autoimmune inflammation, just like fire was. And I brought fire back. Okay, fire was in terrible shape. Okay. Fire's not in terrible shape anymore. He's like a young dog again. He's got one issue left, but he's like a young dog. Okay. Now we're at 35 minutes, so I'm going to get going. But thank you so much for joining me. Thank you. I hope that you will like it and share it, because the more people that will actually go to the video and click the like on it, it will actually circulate to more people with the tags that I have in there. So we need to join together. Whether you're my son's age, whether you're someone doing hip hop and rap, whether you're someone who's a medical doctor, whether you're someone who's Minnesota senator, who I'm so thankful for him, who's a medical doctor and a senator. If you're the authors of books, we need to connect. YouTube family, we need to connect now more than ever. I've been saying this for a very long time. Your immunity is found in the soil. If you are defecating, releasing, shitting, crapping whole foods, it's different than even the dogs are outside and they've got big, lumpy, bumpy, stinky, mucus-filled, parasite-filled bowel movements because they've been living on kibble their whole lives. And they're swollen, they're in autoimmune, so there's a lot of festering bacterial, the bacteria that's unnatural to the body. And we wonder why dogs are always sniffing each other's butts. That's their indicator of health. What's going in, what's going out. Our immunity is, if you believe in the terrain theory, you believe in the gut, you believe in, there is a lot of gut dysbiotic people, gut dysbiosis. And if you believe that 70% of the immune system's in the gut, then what you're eating and what you're shitting is everything. You should be out there shitting more seeds and more whole plant material instead of stinky, encrusted, nasty, fried up. I get it. We're all going to have some fried potatoes. I had lightly pan-fried red potatoes the other day. I wanted something really grounding. It got really cold out here. But it's not what I live on. And you could see it on my skin. And I'm in the worst shape, probably about 3 months ago, the worst shape I've ever been in my entire life at 59. Losing my child, knowing that my child was murked, I'm in the worst shape I've ever been in my entire life. So as someone who helps others with wellness, I really can help you much better if you'll go to naturallywithkaren.com, fill out the wellness form, click submit. Don't just shut the laptop lid down. Give it a minute to send. I know we're all anxious and keyed up, and like I said, unemployment, is it ending? What's happening with my job? I can't keep wearing a mask every day. Let's take the power back. Let's take it back. I'm not weak. So as I said before, I'm a mother and I'm kind, but I'm straight gangster. And people often underestimate that about me. They really, really do. I'm straight water element. I will just seriously roll you over and you won't even see it coming. But I only do that just like you would if I'm deeply provoked. I got to be very, very provoked first. So forgiveness is something I've needed, wanted, and have worked on. Because if I don't, it only hurts me, right? Even when it comes to the greatest task before any mother, to forgive the people, the system, the doctors, the treatment people, the people he lived with. This should not have happened. But it's happening to hundreds of thousands of our children that are young adults that are getting sideswiped by this thing. I went out in the dark many a time. Very, very scary situations. I'm not weak. I'm not totally inexperienced. Okay? I'm straight gangster. Straight. No ifs, ands, or buts. I don't tolerate bullshit. I'm a freedom fighter. I came in from day one, feet first, bam, let's go, let's do this thing. I need to gather everything I can and load up my supplies, knowledge, wisdom, information that becomes knowledge, that becomes wisdom. So I need a lean, healthy body, mind, and spirit. I need to hear the ancestors. I can't do that. I can't have really crystal clear antenna intelligence, pineal, non-calcified. I know it's non-calcified. Well, how do you know? Because I dream, I remember my dreams, because I travel, because I do lots of lucid dreaming, because I do lots of visions, because I've given hundreds of on-point, crystal clear prophecy, hundreds of insights and medical intuition. And it is not just my nature, it's yours. But if you're going to shower in what I was teaching Kim is Hitler's shower with chlorine and fluoride and halogens, and all this stuff is going to gum up what happened to me under those 4 years of stress trying to keep my son alive. Even going to the doctor, I was looking over the doctor's notes last night. We were in the hospital in April with his diarrhea and vomiting and sick stomach. He said, it feels like someone's just taken a razor blade. I said, shit, this stuff has got that kind of withdrawal to it? Yeah, and the nurse said, yep, this is pretty common. We know that. What are you doing dispensing this shit? And then how come when I say, hey, doctor, what are you going to do to help us? My son's addicted. I don't know. What do you want me to do? Whoa, okay, that man is going to see the gangster in me. Trust me, he already is. I've already gone to the medical board. I've already gone to the state district attorney's office. If I could see him in person, I have a fantasy in my mind of what I would do. So it's a good thing we don't. So anyway, thank you for joining me. Thank you for listening. Immunity does not come in a needle. It doesn't. It comes from your soil. It comes from mama's breast. It comes from us together, connected, trusting each other, not with cameras and pictures and selfies. Get rid of the fucking cell phones and the internet and the towers and the banks and the stock market and the jobs and all the bullshit. Get rid of the schools and turn them into housing shelters until they naturally erode, and let us build hempcrete homes, earth ships, and sustainable structures. Okay? That's what I'm going to keep working on. Thank you for joining me, and make it a wonderful day.